A British reporter, I should say, an award-winning British reporter who has lived in Kenya since 2012, was deported yesterday, 24 hours after he arrived back in the country from London. Jerome Starkey is the Africa Correspondent for the Times newspaper of the UK. He posted this picture on his Twitter account where he was detained, that is at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, for 24 hours, and his lawyer was not allowed to see him. If you look at the picture, it's a very interesting situation, I should say. It's barely just a bed and a mattress and almost nothing else. Jerome Starkey is now joining us from London. Thank you so much for being here. Do you know why you were deported?
My pleasure. I've got no idea why I was detained. It remains a mystery. Unfortunately, none of the immigration officers who held me, none of the policemen who came and met me, no one would give me any explanation. Other than that there was a security block on my passport. So when I arrived at passport control on Thursday night, they were about moments away from giving me a visa when the lady noticed something on her computer screen and led me away into a side room from where I was led into a cell.
Has this ever happened to you before, coming into Kenya?
No, I've been visiting Kenya since I was 18 years old. I've been living here for almost 5 years. I've always had a fantastically warm welcome. I've absolutely loved coming to Kenya. I've never had any problems with the authorities and certainly never had any problems with immigration, so it was a huge shock.
Did you ever get a sense during your reporting here that the authorities might have been unhappy with any of your reporting?
Well, I mean, to be very honest, nothing that the immigration officials said gave me that impression, because nothing the immigration officials said really gave me any impression. All they would tell me was that there was a security block on my passport and it had been flagged up to them by some other agency. They said by the security services, or they didn't specify which ones. Clearly, though, when a country like Kenya, when a government chooses to detain and expel an accredited journalist from a well-known international news organization who's been living in the country for a number of years, when a government chooses to expel an accredited journalist with no explanation, then that smacks of intimidation of the press. It certainly gives me the impression, it certainly gives me the fear that somebody somewhere is either unhappy with something I've written or something they thought I was about to write, and they're trying to stop me from doing that.
All right. What happened during detention? You were held at the JKIA for about 24 hours?
That's right. So I was, you know, there's parts of airports that most of us never get to see, and most of us, I hope, will never see them. But in JKIA Terminal 1A, where I landed off the KLM flight from Amsterdam, there is a little cell with 5 bunk beds in it. With a locked door. You posted a picture that we have it on the screen right now. Yeah, so I was led into this room at about midnight on Thursday, and I was kept in there until midday the following day. The only person who came to see me in the cell was an officer from the anti-terrorism police unit. Interestingly, he was the only person during the course of my detention who actually introduced himself by name and identified himself in terms of his unit. And he took a photograph of me, a mugshot of my face on his mobile phone, and he took a photograph of my boarding card and went away, and that was the last I heard from him. I was subsequently visited by a couple of officials from the British High Commission, and they informed me that apparently I had been interviewed by a member of the CID as well, although whether I met anybody from the CID and whether I was interviewed is a mystery to me. There was one person on the evening of my detention wearing plain clothes who refused to identify himself. A couple of the officials, when I asked their names and their positions, refused to identify themselves, which is always unsettling. I'm now led to believe that one of them was from the police CID.
So the statement from the UK High Commission here does not say much. All it does say, when we reached out today, and the head of communications told us, we've provided consular assistance to a British national at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. We did not hear from the government, from the immigration department. None of them could tell us anything regarding why exactly you were deported, indeed why they put a security block on your passport. It all sounds very strange, doesn't it, for you as a reporter?
Larry, it's incredibly strange and very, very unsettling. But, you know, I have to say, the people I dealt with at JKIA, the individuals from the immigration service, were almost all of them unfailingly polite and professional. And as they often reminded me, they were just following orders. What's of concern in a situation like this is who is giving the orders. And it's doubly concerning because no one seems to be taking responsibility for what's happened. The immigration department haven't said that it was their decision. They haven't said that it was an issue with my work permit or any kind of sense of the legality of my presence in Kenya. The police haven't come forward and said that this was done at their behest. Neither the ATPU nor CID, and certainly nor have the National Intelligence Service, the NIS, come forward and said anything. And yet clearly somebody very high up in government, somebody very powerful, had made a decision before I took off from Amsterdam that I was not to be allowed into the country. And when I did land, that decision was put into place. But at no point was I given any opportunity to even know what allegations or what charges or what suspicions were being laid against me. So I didn't have any chance to defend myself against them.
Just to make sure, is your work permit in order? All your documentation is in order?
Yeah, well, my work permit is in order in the sense that I've had 2 consecutive 2-year work permits since I moved here in 2012, and my most recent one expired in October. I've made no secret of that. As soon as it expired, I submitted the paperwork to renew it, as is normal, and as anybody who has dealt with the immigration department knows, these things take time, and during the processing period, we've been advised by the immigration department that we are at liberty to continue using the 3-month visas on arrival that British nationals get, as a matter of course.
How does this compare? You've reported, you're an award-winning reporter who's reported from Afghanistan and Libya as well. How does this compare to that?
Well, I've never had any experience like this. I've never been even stopped at an airport for as long as this. I've never been denied entry to another country in all of my travels, both professionally and privately.
All right. Jerome, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope your situation gets sorted out quickly, and we'll try and reach out for comment from the authorities back here in Nairobi.